We're going to go over this review sheet so that we're ready for the test tomorrow. So the first thing we're looking at is problems 1 through 8, naming the given elements. So if we look at this here, is there one of these in particular that y'all want to look at? Seven. So D33. Well, we know we're looking at matrix D, third row, third column, which would be? So that would be C31. Matrix C, third row, first column would be? First column. Tomorrow. How about 3? What would problem number 3 be? Because we're looking at third row, fourth column. Third row, fourth column would be? How about number 2? So number 2, A11. They're the same. So A, first row, first column. Any other questions on 1 through 8? Okay. If there are no questions on 1 through 8, let's look at 9 through 12. We can go on and do all of these here. So the dimensions of matrix A is what? 4 by 2. Because we're going to go down and then over. We good, Jalen? Okay, let's make sure we're taking notes. How about matrix B? 1 by 4. 1 row, 4 columns. Matrix D would be 4 by 4. And matrix C is a 3 by 5. Because we have 3 and then 5. Any other questions on 1 or 9, 1 through 12, really? Questions on 13, 14, or 15? 13 through 15.
Every single one of it. I want 14. I want 13 and 14.
So we'll do 13, 14, and 15. We'll do all 4. Or all 3 of them.
What about 16? It's all by itself now.
Okay, we'll do 16 as well. So this one here, when we multiply the number of columns in the first has to match the number of rows in the second. And I just flipped that. So this here would be a 2 by 3. And here we would have a 3 by 1. Which it does match. The number of columns in the first matches the rows in the second. So that means we can multiply it. Now, it also tells us that the new dimensions are going to be a 2 by 1. Now, there's 2 ways we can go about multiplying 2 matrices. We can do it by hand, which is going to be our over and down method. And what's the other method? Calculator. Either way works. So if we do it by hand, we're going to go over and down, which would be 6 times 9 plus -7 times 1 plus 4 times 0. And we'll move on to the second row, and we'll go over and down, which would be 2 times 9 plus 8 times 1 plus 10 times 0. Now at this point here, we'll multiply together, so 6 times 9 is 54. Negative 7 times 1 is just going to be negative 7, and 4 times 0 is 0. The next one would be 2 times 9, which is plus 8. Well, 54 minus 7 is 18 plus 8 is. And if you type that in a calculator, you get 47 over 26. So let's look at it in the calculator. So we'll get back to the same thing. So let's look at the calculator. To plug it into the calculator, the first thing we're going to have to do is go second matrix, go over to edit. Now the dimensions of the matrix are what? A2 by 2 by 3. We have 6, negative 7, 4, 2, 8, and 0. Okay. Yes, thank you. So far we've typed the first matrix in, because that would change everything. So any questions on how we typed the first one in? Now at this point here, we can go second matrix, over to edit, and down to matrix B. We want to type the second one in. Now this one here is going to be A3 by 1. And we would type it in 9, 1, 0. So we good for typing in matrix A and B. Second, quit, because we want to go back to the home screen. Now we're going to do A times B, so we can call up second matrix A, and then we can call up second matrix B. Now having them written right next to each other, the calculator understands that we're multiplying. So we can go on and hit enter again. That's it. And that does agree with what we got by doing it by hand, yes? Yeah. So the answer for this one here is 47 and 26. Yes. Second quit, or second mode. We'll quit out of any program or anything that you're in. So this here, we could type this straight into the calculator, because if we did it by hand, we would multiply the first matrix here by 1/2, and we would multiply this one by -3, and then add the corresponding elements together. Now, as I seems that y'all would prefer to do it is in the calculator. So let's go second matrix and edit matrix A, so the first matrix. Now this here is going to be a 3 by 2. We would have 8, -4, 10, got it, -20, 4, and 16. So we need to put in the second matrix, edit B, because we need to put both matrices in.
So do 6.
Yeah, doing second quit, second matrix, and then going over to edit B will work as well. Either one works, as long as we're not trying to input anything else in. So we could go second quit, second matrix, over to edit, And we'll go down to matrix B and hit enter. And this one here is going to be a 3 by 2. And we'll have -1. Now we'll have a fraction here. So we have to go alpha y equals enter 1 over 3 0 2 2. Does it have 0.3 repeated? So what does the number say? Does it have 1/3 or 0.3?
They just put a slash. You just put like a 1.
Yeah, that's fine. Second matrix. 3 by 2, -1. Alpha y equals enter 1. We can say 1 divided by 3 will work the same. Because if alpha y equals is not working, we can just do 1 divided by 3 because that's the same thing. Does that make sense? Because really we're dividing the number. Any other questions on how we type this in? At this point here, we can go second quit. Now looking at the problem, we have 1/2 times what we plugged in as matrix A, yes? So we can go alpha y equals enter for our fraction. So we would have 1 over 2. Now you want to cursor over so you're not putting the matrix into the denominator. And then we would go second matrix, and this time we'll just hit enter because it'll call it matrix A. So we have 1/2 times matrix A. -3. Second matrix. This time we'll cursor down to B, and we have this here. Now be careful, don't hit the negative key. You wanted the subtraction key here. Because if it's the first number, we'll use the negative, because if it was -1/2, we would use the negative. Here we want -3. Now I'm going to cursor back up and select this again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it from minus to negative. Dimension mismatch. It doesn't work. Because if we remember, the dimensions of A are what? A 2 by 3, yes? And the dimensions of B are a 3 by 2. 3 by 2, sorry, because this A, let me go to the other screen. Because this here is a 3 by 2. This is a 3 by 2. Could we multiply these two? No, because the columns of the first does not match the rows of the second. So it won't multiply. Well, what did the calculator just tell us when I changed it from minus to negative? Invalid dimensions. Because it wasn't adding and subtracting, it was multiplying the two. Does that make sense, the difference there? So if it's the second number, we do need to make sure we subtract. Any other questions on 14? We ready for 15? 15, we can do this by hand. If we do it by hand, each element is going to be multiplied by what? 14. So we could plug this into a calculator as A and then do 14A and hit enter, and it would give us the answer. Because in the calculator, I could define this as A and then do 14 times A, and it would give us the answer. Now, if we did it by hand, 14 times 2 is 28, and then negative 98, and 8 times 14, 112. Well, I've done it once already today. 14 and 14 is 28. 28 and 28. 14 and 14, yes, is 196. 56, 56. 6 would be 84.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
That's negative
42.
See, I can't erase that.
Yeah. But that's it. Any questions on these here? 16 is not possible. You know why? Because you have it down.
They're not the same dimension.
Because what are the dimensions of the first matrix? Is a
3 by 4.
for addition and subtraction, they have to be the same, the exact same. Could we have multiplied these two? Because columns of the first match the rows of the second, so it would work. And our new matrix, if we actually were multiplying, would be a 3 by 4. So that's it with those there. Questions on these? Questions on 17, 18, 19, or 20? Because these here are the exact same as what we just did. Now 17, the answer is 352. This is the correct answer. I did have a few questions on that one. Mainly,
Wait,
yeah. I'll show you. I don't know why I had that awkward little space between the 5 and 2, but I went on and fixed it in the answer key or the master copy, so it won't show up again. But these here, 17, 18, 19, and 20 are essentially the same thing as what we just did. With inverses? So we know the two matrices are inverses if we multiply them together and get what? The identity matrix. 1, 0, 0, 1 is the identity matrix. So if we multiply them together and get the identity matrix, then the two matrices are inverses of each other. If we get anything other than the identity, they're not going to be inverses. So what we need to do is multiply these two matrices. What can we use? Yes. Because what are we doing to determine it? We're using multiplication. Multiplication we can do in the calculator. Now, if we did this by hand, it would be over and down. So we would have 7 times 1/7, which is 1, plus 4 times 0 is 0. If we do it again, we'll go over and down. So 7 times negative 2/7 is negative 2. 4 times 1/2 is plus 2. Our next one, over and down, well, 0 times negative 1/7 is 0. 2 times 0 is plus 0. And last one, over and down, 0 times negative 2/7 is 0, and 2 times 1/2 is plus 1, which gives us 1, 0, 0, 1. So are these inverses? Yes, sir. Not sure. More than 10, less than 100. But you will have more than enough time to cover it in the slot.
So we get like Thursday too, right?
I'm giving you Wednesday, Thursday just on the off chance you don't finish it on Wednesday, but the odds of that happening are very slim.
Have you ever?
Any other questions on 21? Are we good with 21 through 25? Because 23 is actually yes. The answer key says no, but it's actually yes, this is an inverse.
So you got it wrong.
Yes. And 24 is no. Because I realized what I think I did on the answer key was when I was filling this out, I think I went 21, 22, and then dropped down for 23, 24, and then back up. Because 23 and 24, yes, no, they're flipped. Yes.
You know how you told us, like, how you do the test,
Mhm.
see how long it takes you, then times it by like whatever.
5.
See how long it takes
Mhm.
us. How fast did you do the test?
Probably 7 minutes, I think. But that's also, I think, with some of the calculation help on this here, but not too bad. Any other questions on 21 through 25? Trey, did that kind of, I think, that verified? Okay. So let's look at 26 through 29. Find the inverse of the matrix if it exists. Well, we know in matrices inverse will not exist if the determinant is 0. If the determinant is 0. Because our equation for this here is 1 over AD minus BC times D negative B negative C and A. And this here is really the inverse of the matrix AB CD. Because we flip the positions of A and D and make B and C negative, or switch the signs. Now for this here, because we'd have 1 over AD minus BC, well, AD would be 8 times 0 minus 27 times 2. Parentheses. Well, A and D would switch, so our first number is now 0. Bottom right is 8. And we would have.
On the 1 over AD minus BC, why is 8 A? Right there, so the A is at the bottom.
So here, yep. So we're doing essentially the determinant or cross 8 times 0 minus 27 times 2. So if the denominator of this fraction became 0, we really wouldn't have an inverse because that is the determinant. Now at this point here, 8 times 0 is 0. Negative 27 times 2 is now we just need to multiply the two together. Well, we can tackle the hardest one first. Negative 1/54 times 0 is? Now, negative 1/54 times negative 27, well, the negative and negative would make a positive, and this would become 1/2. Well, how did we get 54? 27 and 2, yes? Well, 27 and 27 are a factor, yes? So what's the only thing left? And it's in the bottom of the fraction. So it's 1/2. When you do negative 54 times negative 2, well, the negative and negative would make a positive. Well, they do have a common factor, and it would leave us with 1/27, because our 54 was 2 times 27. The 2 and 2 would cancel. Now 8 actually works out to be negative 4 27s. Because 8 is 4 times 2. So this here would be the inverse.
I think I'll just type that calculator.
Okay. Let's see how we would do this in the calculator. Yes. So the way we would type this into the calculator is, well, first we need to actually input the matrix itself. So we can go second matrix over to edit, and we type in that this is a 2 by 2. We would have 8, 27, 2, and 0. We're good with typing it in. So we've typed all the matrices in, yes? So we can go second quit. Now what we'll want to do is second matrix A. And the way we denoted that it was an inverse was a negative 1 in the exponent, yes? Where's that key? Well, that's where we normally hit matrix, yes? So we have A inverse, enter. Well, that looks a little different than what we had, yes? Because it gave us decimals instead of fractions. How can we get fractions? Math, enter, enter, and we get this here, 0, 1/2, 1/27th, and negative 4/27ths. And this is the inverse of A, yes? Could I have done this with 21 through 25? Well, yes, because I could have picked one of the two matrices to find the inverse of it. And if the inverse matched with the other matrix, then they are inverses. But this here, 0, 1/2, 1/27, and negative 4/27 is the inverse of A. Any questions on this here? I believe that brings us to the last part, yes? So we need to find the determinant. So let's look at one of each. So is 30, 31, or 32? Which one of those do y'all want to look at? 34? We'll look at 34 next. Let's do, what do y'all, 32. That's fine. Now 32, doing this one in the calculator or doing it by hand, neither one's going to be faster than the other. Because if we do it by hand, we're doing kind of the cross method. We'll have negative 7 times negative 4 minus 2 times 14. Now this one here, you do need to be careful, especially if you're doing it by hand. The sign doesn't just change. The only way that the sign in the middle is going to become positive is if 2 times 14, these second two numbers, when multiplied, give us a negative. Because if we have a subtraction of a negative, then the signs would change. Here, negative 7 times negative 4 is positive 28. Minus 2 times 14 is, and 28 minus 28 is 0. So the determinant of this matrix is does this matrix have an inverse? No. Huh? For the 3 by 3? A little bit. For 34. So any questions on this here before we look at 34? Now, I didn't say this earlier, but these here, there's two ways that we do know that we're taking the determinants. One of them is that because there's not brackets, we just have almost the absolute value bars for a matrix, that's telling us it's a determinant because of how the bars are set up. The other way is it actually tells us 30 through 35, find the determinant. So two ways we can kind of see that. Now, what we'll want to do here, because if we did this by hand, we'll have to do our diagonals, multiply those together, and add the result. And then we would subtract from it the diagonals going the other direction and add those three sets of numbers together to find the determinant. Now the other method is plug it in the calculator.
Let's do that.
Okay. So first thing we want to do is second matrix, go over to edit. And it's going to be a 3 by 3. So we can do 1 divided by 3. Because if alpha y equals isn't working, we can just use the division, 1 divided by 3. Yep. 2, 4, 0, negative 1 divided by 8, 7, 3, and doing the division or doing the fraction alpha y equals, it'll give you the same answer. Any questions on how we type this in? Now, since we've got all the matrices typed in, we can go second quit. Now, we want the determinant, so we can go second matrix, but this time we're going to go over to math. The first one on top of the list, DET, is determinant, so we'll hit enter. And then we'll go second matrix and enter to call it matrix A. And at this point, we can hit enter, and it gives us this here. Now, if I want to see it as fraction, I can go math, enter, enter, and it would give us 67/6 or 11.16. 6 repeating. Either one of these works. Because it would be 66 and 1/6 would be the other answer. Any other questions on any of this here?
Fraction would be okay.
Fraction or decimal? Mm-hmm. For the determinant or fraction? Let me see. Okay. Okay, so to pull up determinant, we're going to go second matrix over 1. And the first one is determinant. So if you hit enter, and then second matrix, and then enter to call it matrix A. And then one more time. Enter again. Yeah.
I just was writing how to.
That's odd it went equals answer. Mm-hmm. Oh, clear. Second. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, I think you hit cleared. I just didn't see it. But that's it. And that's it, guys.